r/AskReddit. People who were adopted when they were old enough to remember it. How long did it take for your adopted family to feel like your family? About 2 months. That's when I asked if I could call her mum. She cried and I felt bad because I didn't know happy tears were a thing when I was 5. Oh my god, this is so sweet. Oh man. I was 5 and my mom picked me up and sat me on the kitchen counter and asked me if I'd like it if my dad moved away by himself into an apartment complex that has a swimming pool. All I could really grasp was swimming pool and I excitedly said yes. She started sobbing while holding me there on the countertop and all I could do was start crying too. About a week in when they told me I didn't have to ask permission every time I wanted food. I was like, well, this is family. That is so interesting to me. My stepmom didn't allow me to eat without permission and intentionally took naps during lunchtime so I would have to wait until she got up. She once caught me in the pantry eating 2 Pringles while my dad was home. This is key. So she started throwing ingredients around in the kitchen to make me a sandwich because if I was hungry enough to eat 2 chips, I was hungry enough for an entire sandwich. Passively aggressively made a sandwich while slamming everything down on the counter and loudly talking about how terrible I was for sneaking food. I never would have thought to look at family home the way you did. I was about 9 years old when I was adopted. My sisters and my brother came with. At the time, I didn't realize just how crazy my new parents were for deciding to adopt all 4 of us at once. Now that I'm older, I can safely say that we've given both of them absolute hell all throughout our teenage years. Honestly, not being separated from my siblings made the transition kind of seamless. We'd been in the foster care system for only about 8 months and were more or less oblivious to what was going on. Then we were introduced to some people who wanted to be our new parents. One week we were visiting these 2 nice people. The next we were living with them and visiting all our new relatives. I know that it might sound kind of bland, but there was maybe only a period of a couple weeks where I had to get comfortable with thinking of these strangers as family. Maybe it helped that I was a relatively dumb kid, or maybe my new family being so closely knit with each other helped. Hell, my new grandparents lived next door to us until we moved to a bigger house. I'm so happy they adopted all of you. It can't have been easy, but siblings being split up makes me so sad. I can't imagine being split up from my brothers. I was adopted at 11 and technically this happened just before. It's important to note I have trouble showing affection. The day I realized I was really wanted was when my adoptive dad got on a plane with me and flew over 2 states so I could confront my bio dad. I wanted answers. In the end I asked him to give up parental rights as I could clearly see I had found a better family. When you have one dad standing back but still close enough to protect you showing love and another slumped, half drunk on a picnic table, it's clear what the best option is. After that I felt more relaxed as I knew I couldn't be sent back to my bio dad. He was holding out his rights to stop the adoption. I didn't become affectionate per se, but I did start being more comfortable and sharing my dreams in life, which often resulted in my dad in the backyard doing dumb stuff with me like learning hula hoop tricks because I wanted to join the circus. So I guess the answer is from the start once I was adopted. Edit. For all those asking, no, I didn't end up joining a circus. I do however have some neat party tricks I can do with a hula hoop. Edit 2. My most upvoted comment is about how my dad is the bomb diggity. This makes my soul happy. Edit 3. Obligatory thank you for the silver kind stranger. It's my first. And my first gold. My cherry has been popped. Plus a second gold. I told my dad an internet stranger gave me gold and he was super confused. OMG platinum. I'm so happy so many have found joy from my story. I love that your dad supported you in your circus joining dreams. Not long once I realized they saved us, me and my 2-year-old sister at the time. I was 8. Tell us more. My best friend was adopted. Not sure how accurate my response is since it's second-hand information, but she always struggled to fit into her family. Her parents and 2 sisters are blonde with soft features, and she's Eastern European with pitch black hair, fair skin and a sharp face. Even though she was adopted young, her 2 sisters are much closer with each other. She spoke frequently about feeling left out and different. Her family are very practical, salt of the earth people, while she's quite eccentric. I remember at a sleepover, she pointed at a beautiful family portrait over the fireplace. She said that nobody realizes she remembers having that portrait taken, even though she's 3 or 4 in the photo. She remembers they took 2 photos, one with and one without, so they could use the second one just in case the adoption didn't go through. When we were teenagers, she put an enormous amount of effort into finding her birth mother, and eventually did. I don't know what happened during the meeting, but I know it wasn't what she was expecting. I asked if they were going to meet again, and she said no. She looked crushed, and never mentioned finding her biological relatives again. Oh my god, how terrible about the picture and how sad it didn't work out. My best friend's husband tried for a year to find his biological family and finally found some cousins who gave him his bio mom's phone number. He was so excited. He called her and she promptly told him never to call again. I was adopted by my foster family when I was 5 years old. I had been with them since I was a baby, but I fully understood there was a difference between being a foster kid who called them mom and dad and being their kid. A lot of kids came in and out of the doors that called them mom and dad, but I knew that if I was adopted it meant I got to stay. This may sound harsh, but I sincerely appreciated it. When my parents were waiting to hear about the adoption, my mom sat me down and we had a very tough conversation. I obviously don't remember the details, but I do remember one thing. A yes to the adoption meant I could stay with them forever. A no meant that I would likely be moved to a new foster home. I remember hiding in my room when any new cars pulled up out front of our house because I so badly wanted to stay. My mom said she told me because she wanted me to have no doubt in my mind that yes or no they wanted and loved me. Luckily for me, and I have to say this because I can feel the stares of my whole family if I don't, luckily for them too, the answer was yes. I think when it clicked for me, really fully clicked, was when I was about 10-13 and I found an old VHS tape with my name on it. I put it in and it was my family. My mom, dad, brother and sister. They were all standing in front of the camera and they were talking about me. My older brother said something I'll never forget. I have a little sister, her name is Eliendra. I guess she isn't ours yet, but we want to keep her. I really hope we get to cause I love her a lot. That did it. Knowing that this awkward 14-year-old kid loved me so much he was willing to say that into a camera for a tape my parents planned to send with me if I couldn't be theirs. I was a mess. I still can barely watch it now without bursting into tears. My brother and I are about 12 years apart and we are the best of friends. It definitely helped that all of my extended family felt the same too. Anytime anyone would say something or make a comment or even mention adoption, my aunts were like vultures. It's the most amazing feeling ever. Well, that doesn't matter, she is ours. Always has been, followed by crushing hugs from at least 5 people. I've read a lot of the comments about people wanting to adopt and I think that's a big one. Talk about it. Don't let it be a dirty secret. Make sure your kid knows that different biology or not, they are yours. My family was fantastic about it and I feel like it made a huge difference. I've also read a lot of comments about adopted kids never feeling like they fit with their adopted family. I had that less because I was always allowed to be who I was. I've since met my biological family and I feel much more awkward and uncertain with them. They expect me to be just like them and I'm not. I'm also not just like my adopted family either. I'm just me. My family does a much better job of making me feel valued, loved and accepted for those differences than some of my birth family. That said, I also get along really well with my birth mom, who I just called by name. We met when I was 16. She has never tried to parent me and we have a solid understanding of our role. I have a mom and she is fantastic. My birth mom is not my mom, but I am her daughter. It's confusing for other people but it makes sense for us. Once I was in family court, I was having a guy declared dead, of all things, and a girl who was about 11 was being adopted that day. From what I gathered from the chit chat, she'd been fostered by that family for several years, and they'd been waiting years for the mother, drug problems, to finally terminate her parental rights so they could adopt her for good. There were like 30 people there, literally everyone she was about to be related to, grandparents who'd flown in for the occasion, aunts and uncles with toddlers in tow who'd driven 3 states to be there, all dressed in their Sunday best. The girl's adoptive mom was tearing up every 30 seconds and trying really hard to not cry. Dad was more stoic and just kind of staring straight ahead. The lawyer presented the final paperwork to the judge, who looked it over, called the immediate family forward, signed it, reached over the tall desk to shake the girl's hand and said, "Congratulations, young lady. You're adopted," and handed her the paper. She froze and stared at it like she couldn't believe it, then her hand holding the paper started shaking. Then she just started sobbing. She dropped the paper and collapsed in her mom's arms, who was sobbing her eyes out, and the dad was stoic for like 15 seconds and then started the gigantic, whooping, gasping sobs of a man who otherwise only cries when his mother dies. The assorted aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents all crowded around them, crying and laughing, and the judge started crying, and all the lawyers who were there on other matters started crying, and the bailiff and the court reporter started crying, and the judge had to call a recess because everyone was crying too hard to continue with court. If I were an artist and I were going to paint angels seeing the light of heaven, I'd paint the faces of that family as they left the courtroom. You and all your hug smush aunts made me think of it, and just typing it makes me start crying again. My girl came to us at 4Y. She called me dad from the beginning, but the real switch was after 2Y living with us. Are you comfortable explaining what do you mean by the real switch? This whole comment section is reminding me of this Gabriel Iglesias story. Gabriel speaking to his girlfriend's son. "So, have you ever wanted to meet your real dad and talk to him?" "Son, but Gabriel, you are my real dad. My aunt and uncle adopted me when I was 3 years old." What followed was years of emotional breakdowns, therapy, and social anxiety. For the longest time it never felt like I ever had or deserved a family. I eventually came to terms with me just in another living space. I did learn to love the family I was adopted into though. Around the time I was transferring colleges out of the state, my family was genuinely sad to see me leave, and it kinda just hit me that these people actually love me. My late adoption caused long-term self-esteem issues, and this was the first time in my life I knew people could love and care about me. Everything my family did to accommodate into our new home, therapy, letting me visit my birth parents, putting my last name on the mailbox, and more was done out of complete love. I'm 22 now and I'm going to be moving out in 2 months. I am very bad at expressing gratitude and I don't like hugging or talking to people, but I'm doing literally all I can to try to convey that I love them. I've been looking bad at these last 19 years now and I feel horrible that I didn't believe they cared about me. I don't think they believe me when I tell them I love them. This is emotionally tolling on me, but I'm gonna keep trying until I know they know. Edit. It's not lost on me how many of you who came across this post bothered to lend me your support and kindness. I am extremely touched and will definitely write a letter as many of you suggested. It's very hard for me to articulate how I felt growing up and how I feel now. The fact that so many of you said so many positive things made my day. Thanks. I'm not sure if this counts, but my dad left when I was about 1 year old. Even during that year he was barely ever around. My mom has taken great care of me and still does. I'm 15. When I was younger it was really hard for my 3-year-old brain to understand why I didn't have a dad like all my other's friends. I was pretty upset about it as I got older and my mom and grandparents started to realize it. My granddad really stepped up and started to hang out with me and just be with me more in general. We still spend a lot of time together because he's been the only man in my life and he means the world to me. I know this probably doesn't count as an adoption story, but I felt like I should share it. Not sure if this fully counts, but my stepfather adopted me when I was 11. My mom and biological dad got divorced when I was 3 months old. Mom remarried to my stepdad when I was 4, so he had been in my life almost from the beginning. To me, my stepdad always felt like my family more than my bio dad, just due to the fact that he was around more and put in effort to really parent me. My bio dad just wasn't ready to be a father and couldn't handle the responsibility it took to parent me when he got to see me every other weekend. And even as a child I could sense that from him. Family is and always will be the people that are there through thick and thin and make a conscious effort to be a part of my life. My stepdad and I are really close and I never felt like there was an adjustment period. I'm so lucky I have two parents that loved me and raised me in the best possible circumstances they could. I stopped speaking to my biological father after the adoption process went through. He always spoke poorly of my mother, who is a superhuman of a person, and defied all odds against her. Periodically got into fights, drank excessively, smoked, neglected to feed me to the point where my mom would cook and pack meals to send with me when I'd go to his house for the weekend, etc. It's hard to feel connected to a person that will treat you like that just because they are biologically related to you. On the other hand, my stepdad supported my mother and myself through everything that we went through. He taught me how to be confident, work hard for the things you want, stand up for myself, and be kind to people even if they aren't kind to you. We watched sports together, taught me how to change a tire, bought me my first drink at 21 and went out to the club with me. He's one of the kindest and most generous people I know. I was adopted really late, like 20. And I felt like I was theirs from day one. They felt it too. I didn't move in straight away. In fact, I was living elsewhere and would go to them on weekends only for about 6 MTS before I fully moved in. I will never forget how much they loved me, and I thought I was so special. They were older white Jewish Americans and I was a small African kid from Kenya. But it worked out perfectly, and they are more than my parents. They are really like incarnations of God to me. I am what I am mainly because of them. I am so privileged. In loving me, they taught me how to love, but I always felt super special from day one. Fast forward 5 years and I met my husband, and guess what? They love him the exact same way and have basically adopted him as well. My mom told me a month ago, "Em is our favorite person." And I was like, "What about me? I thought I was your favorite person." And she was like, "You are our daughter, you're not our favorite person, LMAO. I love her so much." I was 6, my sister 11. She took to them right away, but it took me about 6 months. This is abnormally long, but because they were the 4th family to try and adopt us, I thought I was going back into foster care, so I had an irrational hatred of them for several months. Now 14 years later, I am very glad they adopted my sister and I. My parents both remarried when I was 9, and so I have extensive step families. I don't know if this is the same. I considered them my family pretty quickly afterwards, although I recently found out that my stepdad's mother doesn't consider me her grandchild, 22 years later. Well, I was never adopted, but I did spend an exchange year in the US with a lovely American host family. I would say it went super fast, maybe 3-4 months in we were family. The first time I cried my eyes out, because I was so homesick. They tried my tears and spent the entire night comforting me. That was the night I knew they were my family. 12 years since my exchange year and I still call them mom and dad.